Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Everyday Faith streamcast. Today we have an awesome guest with a powerful story. This is Brother Michael Irizarry coming in from Orlando, Florida, and we're going to be talking about COVID-19, faith, family, and politics. So it's going to be a juicy episode. And with that in mind, let's bring on Mr. Michael Irizarry.
How are you guys doing? Doing good?
Hello, good evening, brother.
Can you hear me okay?
It's about, 11 o'clock your time?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a little after 11. It's 11:02 to be exact. So it's pretty late out here, but I'm still up.
I just lost sound. Hey, Alex, you can give me your headphones because I just lost sound again. I don't know why. I literally can't hear a thing.
I don't think my Bluetooth is hooked up.
Sorry about this, because I can't hear a thing. I'm going to switch over to headphones over here. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right. You're coming in actually clearer now too, so.
Okay, great, perfect. So as I was saying, it's 11 o'clock your time.
Yes, correct. Yeah, 11 o'clock. Glad to be on with you.
Yeah, me too. Well, I'm sure the audience would like to know more, and I want to too, because we've had some very intense and conversations on online. Of course, online is always a very difficult format. I think it's a very limited medium because you can't read tone.
Correct.
You don't have body language. You don't have a lot of things, and 96% of communication is nonverbal. So I'm just so happy we could actually have this conversation face to face.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's actually good to meet you to a degree. So,
yeah,
I think it's so funny, but when you're talking via text or Facebook chat, anything like that, when it has to do with just words, I think a lot of things often get lost in translation because, just like you said, 96% of communication is through our posture, how we speak, our tone, so on and so forth. So I think you can't really convey those types of things online when you're talking via typing the way you can, just having an open dialogue and open conversation. So I'm actually grateful that you actually still want to speak to me, because I know sometimes we've kind of gone back and forth. So I shared with my wife, I think it was last week, I told her that because she's seen you online. And she was like, who is this guy, Eric? And I was like, he was a friend of a friend. And we ended up talking. And I think we've been doing this for probably 5 or 6 years now. It's been a long. 5 or 6 years. Yeah. Yeah. So I said, at the end of the day, we're both brothers in Christ. So we can say, hey, we have our opinions. We might cross some lines every now and again, but we say, hey, we're here and we're brothers in Christ. So we forgive one another if we misappropriate our words, and we apologize and we forgive each other, and that's it. So here we are. Yeah, and I think that sometimes just reading words on a page, it can be really dehumanizing. Absolutely, it's very dehumanize somebody. Sure. When we're having a real conversation, it's like I was actually a friend of mine that I met through the internet, and we're having a very intense conversation. And then we talked over the phone. And now he's one of my best friends. So sure, yeah, there you go. Yeah, it happens. So it definitely happens. So my background. So obviously I'm in Orlando, Puerto Rican, actually Mexican descent. My mom, Mexican from Texas. So she was born and raised in Texas. I was born in Texas, raised all over, military brat. So I moved. Actually grew up most of my life out in Hawaii, believe it or not. Lived out there. Wow. Lived out there for about 16 years, most of my adolescence. I lived on Oahu, but kind of grew up all over. Good portion there in Hawaii. moved out to North Carolina. I've been to Texas, Colorado, Europe. You pretty well name it. I've been very fortunate to travel a good number of places. Mexican descent and Puerto Rican. Actually found out some cool history a few years ago about my background, so it's pretty cool. Yeah, Howley, that's right. Yeah, I'm a Mexican Howley. How's that? So, just kind of moved around a lot. Adopted by my father.
Wow.
Yep, adopted by my father. He raised me from about 2 years old. So he is my dad. I do know my biological father and have a relationship with him as well, which was just recent, probably within the last 5 to 7 years. But my dad is my dad. Yeah. Background, moved up all over the place. Landed here in Florida about 20 years now. So I think actually more than 20 years. Back in 95, I finished school up in North Carolina, then came down here. And kind of been there and done it, man. Conservative in nature, very conservative, probably more conservative than some Tea Partiers. So.
Oh wow! So
yeah,
so are you like a third generation? Because at what point did your family immigrate to the United States?
Grandparents immigrated. Actually, biologically, my biological father, my biological grandmother from my father's side was actually Puerto Rican. His grandfather, or my grandfather, is actually part Irish and German. So with a little bit of French. So I have a kind of a mutt,
Wow.
And then my mom is Mexican, Puerto Rican. So she's Hispanic, obviously. Her grandparents came here from Mexico. Or excuse me, not her grandparents. My grandfather came here from Mexico. So he came over from, I think they were from I think they were Tijuana. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But they came in
you're
from
basically
Mexico.
third
generation.
Third generation.
Yes, correct. Third generation. Wow. Yep.
That's
from both
awesome.
sides.
Oh,
so from both sides, yeah. Yeah. So, but very conservative. Trying to think some of the other things here.
Well, I mean, I think that brings us to the next question is, a lot of people, I kind of told people that you have a crazy backstory. So what people want to know is, what was your former life before the family life?
Well, I'm kind of a product of, I had a good upbringing. My dad, he was military, so very kind of stringent, very, what is the word? I didn't deviate much from his path.
Very disciplinarian, right?
Yeah. In my upbringing, I've always been kind of a wild child. Even to this day, I'm bumping 50 and I still act like I'm probably 25.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm very youthful in nature. I goof around a lot, and I've always been kind of that way. So I've always been kind of I was always the guy in the back of the class that kind of made cracks or wisecracks, made jokes, made fun of people, kind of a bully, honestly. Kind of had the party clique. So, I used to party a lot in high school. So going into college, just made some bad decisions. Product of, I spent some time in prison for almost 2 years.
I think people want to know more about that. What happened there? I mean, going to jail for 2 years for prison for 2 years.
Yeah. So economically, I've been pretty blessed economically. Hang on, let me back this up a little bit. I've been pretty blessed economically. I've always been kind of driven economically. So even when I was younger, always trying to do things to make money. And I unfortunately did things that I shouldn't have done, that were criminal. That had consequences. And
you're a hustler.
Yeah, definitely that. I was more in the economic part of it. So, I worked for some probably kind of negative people. They were bad people. Had to do, of course, with drugs. Most of the stuff that my background, not selling or anything like that, but more dealing on the back end for the economics. So I used to do a lot of investing and stuff like that. Did some property investments for some people I shouldn't have done. Turned into some fraud, bank fraud. I was investigated for investment type fraud, insider type trading stuff, and investigated for that, which could have been a really bad scenario. Thankfully,
what was the worst case scenario if you had, if the prosecutor got everything they wanted?
Probably 10, 15 years, I would think. I mean, they were threatening as many as 15 years. So it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. Doing the wrong stuff for the wrong people, and kind of got caught in the middle of it. And you kind of lie through your process and you try to cover it up as much as you can. But eventually, I believe that God has a calling on all of our lives. And I think that God brings a lot of darkness into light. And he just happened to bring that darkness that I was into light. But it wasn't just those things criminally. I was having an adulterous affair with a married woman. It was pretty rough. It was a very bad season of my life. So roughly about, this was back in 2000, pardon me. Back in 2000, the year before 9/11, it was about in September. Everything kind of just erupted, kind of blew up in my face, and everything came out. And I remember being in one of my best friends' homes. He was a believer, and he's actually one of the ones that invited me to church the first time. And he was trying to pour into me from a scriptural standpoint, really just trying to mentor me from a godly perspective. And I remember.
So was this the turning point? Your friend?
No, it wasn't. But it was it was my breaking point. Just put it that way. It was a point.
It was
where
kind of like it was
the
planting of the seed. The planting
Correct.
of the seed. If you will.
Yeah, and he had been planting seeds in my life probably in 5 or 6 years before that, because I had known him since about 1996. I've been friends with him, so he'd been in my life up to that point about 4 or 5 years, and very just God-filled man. To this day, he's actually he got his master's in divinity just a little while ago, and he's in ministry to this point still. And he just kind of said, "Hey, I see a light in you, and I pray that God would use me to help to bring it to surface." And I got down to my breaking point one day. I was literally sitting in his living room, and pretty well lost everything at that point. I was pretty well, it wasn't pretty well. I was homeless. Everything had got exposed.
Homeless?
Yeah, I was under investigation at that point. Everything that I had was pretty well gone, or on its way out for the most part. And he'd opened up his house, said, "Hey, why don't you stay with me?" So I was with him for maybe a month or so, and then I remember being in his living room one night, and I said, "Man, we just gone to church," and I said, "Dude, I got to tell you, man, I don't see it. Like, I don't see myself making that commitment to God. I don't." I said, "God's going to have to do something crazy in my life for me to really surrender myself like that." And I think I was locked up about 2 days later. So yeah, it's kind of describe, like, where was your mind? What was going through your mind that led you to say that there's no way? Like, what was your state of mind at that point? Pride, definitely prideful. Because, when you get into a point where you kind of live, this lie, and you start believing it, and you believe certain things about yourself. You believe that, A, you're too good for it. B, you're too smart to get caught. You just believe all these things about yourself. And the reality is you have this sense of control that you believe you have. And I was completely out of control. I didn't know it at that point, obviously, but God knew. And there was this reconciliation that kind of said, "Hey, dude, you have no control over anything." And I came to that point, in that time period. So I think I got locked up 2 days later. Even when I was locked up, it was crazy because you get locked up and you hustle more. You get locked up, and I was pre-law in college. So you kind of learn how to try to manipulate your way through things. And even when I was locked up, you manipulate relationships with people so that, they can help you, and they can help you through processes. Because mind you, at this point, I'd kind of lost everything. My family had kind of just said, "Hey," they kind of turned me over and surrendered me and said, "Hey, he's got to deal with this on his own." and my parents did, and everybody at that point I was on my own. I was Lone Ranger, and it was a necessity because it had to be done because at that point I'd always find a way to bail out of things or find somebody to bail me out or whatever it was. I'd kind of always find my way out of a situation, no matter how bad it was. But at this point, it wasn't. And everybody just kind of said, no, we got to allow Mike to kind of have his fall. And everybody pulled back away, which was a very lonely place, very lonely place. And he was one of the ones. He said, Mike, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna be dishonest with you. Sometimes these are things you got to go through. That was my friend. His name is Mike also. Oh, and kind of went through the process and got locked up. Still went through the process in jail. Didn't surrender myself to Christ probably till I was 6 or 8 months in. It was about 6 or 8 months.
Kind of had to hit rock bottom, more or less.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you, it was so wild because what really made me hit rock bottom was when I was locked up. I wrote a letter to my dad. And I said, hey, why, kind of, it was pushing it back to him. Why have you abandoned me? Because that's what you do, right? You kind of point fingers to kind of make up for your own shortcomings. Yeah. How could you abandon me? I'm your son, this and that, da, 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 da. I thought you were going to be here for me. And I kind of I sent him a letter. You don't visit me. You don't put money in my commissary, whatever it was. I said, dude, what's up? How could you do this to me? Him and my mom. And, he said, Mike, I had to. I had to, because God knows where you would be, And so about getting that letter, I remember just sitting there. I was, locked up. I just remember sitting there going, man, God, I got to make a change, dude. I can't do this anymore. And so that was kind of the turning point. And I've been serving Christ since. Have my good and bad, not perfect, obviously. Read my word. I'm very faithful in reading my word, studying the word. I'm very faithful in my church. Serve with youth in my church, which.
Yeah, and so basically you kind of hit that rock bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like you kind of had a moment of revelation or of conversion.
Yep.
And was it in prison or was it after you got out of prison?
It was. No, it was in jail. I was behind closed doors. So I was behind locked doors. So behind bars, whatever you want to say. Not really bars, but big steel sliding door. So yes, it was in prison. And it's crazy. God is faithful. If you pull up my criminal record today, most of my record is they withheld adjudication. So I did 2 years, almost full 2 years. Served probation for about 12 months. Did a lot of community service because I had to kind of work my way through the process. What else did I do?
Well, actually, anyway. I want to. Yeah. So obviously, you did your time, right? And you had to give back to the community.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to the next part, which is you obviously was able to transition.
Sure.
And you eventually met your wife, and how did that happen?
Homeless when I got out because my dad, my parents were still apprehensive about helping me. Obviously, you have this conversion, but I remember one of my mentors always used to tell my spiritual mentors always used to tell me time is credibility. Unfortunately, you got to do the time in order to earn credibility, right? And it's the same thing as a believer. Our faith is tried, obviously, but our faith in Christ is tried through our trials and how we respond to them, and it becomes credibility. We become credible in our faith when people see things happening to us, and we stand in the faith. So we become credible in the same way. So it was the same thing. I was locked up, but my parents didn't really know anything about the conversion. They knew that I accepted Christ, but they didn't really know anything about my conversion, right?
Right.
So they were pretty well still weren't helping me. So I came out. I was literally homeless. And this was back in the 90s. So mind you, I'm in my 30s. I was probably making at that point, definitely in the six figures. But back in the 90s was a pretty good amount of money. 6 figures then is a lot more than it is today.
Yeah, that's true.
So I was doing pretty good. Lost everything, came out of homeless. So I literally went into a homeless shelter. I stayed in a homeless shelter mind you, my background is business, pre-law. I wasn't one of those guys who would swing in hammers or anything like that. So I went, and this is probably one of the reasons why I'm very conservative fiscally, and also other areas. But one of the reasons I'm very conservative fiscally is because I started off at a homeless shelter. I had to pay $7 a night to stay at the shelter. I went first day they gave you. I think the first 7 days were free, or maybe 5 days.
So you had to work, kind of basically work your way out of it.
I worked day labor. I made $30 a day or whatever it was. Did it every day. Got my check, cashed enough to pay for my stay at the homeless shelter, which I think was $7 a night. Cashed enough to eat, and usually they would give you a meal in the morning. So you know.
And where did at what point did the love of your life enter in the picture?
That wasn't a while. That was probably about 2000, probably about 10 years later. 10 years later. So
it was not immediate.
No.
It was over time.
Oh yeah, over 10 years. Yeah, 10 years before I met my wife. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it was over 10 years.
I had to
just kind of clawed my way out, man. And I met her. We've been together for actually 15 years.
Wow.
So we've been
together.
You got
2 kids, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. Got 2 daughters. Well, I got 3 children. One of them was from a previous marriage. I'd also been married before. He's adult. He's grown. He bought his own house last year, and he's about 20. He's 26. So he lives around not around the corner, but he lives down the road from me. I have my 2 girls. Love all of them dearly. My wife. You know.
And now you're running your own business, if I understand.
Yeah, correct. Right? Yeah. I'm one of the principals in my business now. So we're a commercial subcontractor. So we do commercial business or commercial buildings. Anything from Amazon buildings. I think we're doing 3. We're contracted to do 3 Amazon buildings, Walmarts. You pretty well name it. We're a subcontractor, but I do more of the business stuff. You know, I don't do any of the labor-intensive work.
So from homeless to business owner.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And I've worked in the financial field most of my life. Worked my way up any position I took, and this last time was just a position where one of the gentlemen from my church, the business was struggling. I would go into underperforming companies, and typically I'd go in there, implement processes, whatever it was. But I'd basically go in there, create a business development plan for them, which would hopefully turn the business around. So the gentleman that I work with, he was my partner now. He'd asked me to come in and do it with him. He was about to retire, and he is about to retire. And he said, "Hey, what do you think about doing it for my company?" And I said, "Sure, but I want a piece of the pie this time. I want to do it on my own, and I want something for myself long term." And so here I am. I've been there for 5 years. I took over the company. We were doing about 1 million in business, and probably this year we'll do about 13, 14 million. So,
wow.
Yeah, we've really turned it around in 5 years. Yeah, it is. We've completely.
So from homeless to dealing with millions.
Not yet, man, but I'm going to get there. I'll tell you what, I told my more liberal family members, I said, "Hey man, you think yourself as a 1%er, then guess what? You'll become a 1%er, right? It's just a matter of work and discipline and putting your actions into play, so."
Yeah, so that brings us to kind of the political subject that I can identify more as a conservative, but I feel like you are a fiscal conservative, but you're also more independently minded.
I am. I don't think any side is right. I think both sides, nobody's right. I mean, at the end of the day, both sides are wrong. They're wrong in different ways. But I think, they're both wrong. Period. One of my daughter. Okay, never mind. Both sides are, they have their deficiencies. And so I am.
So, what are your thoughts on Trump right now in terms of handling the pandemic? That's a very.
I got to tell you, and I was just thinking about this. I was actually just praying just a little while ago, and I said, I'm really kind of. I'll be honest with you, and you won't hear me say this a lot, but I'm really disappointed with him.
Wow, really?
I'm not disappointed in his plan. I am disappointed now that he seems to be trying to brush it under the rug. I think he needs to be very deliberate in his messaging right now, which is, hey, guys, we owe a responsibility to ourselves and we owe a responsibility to our neighbors to be safe, to practice, the social distancing, to practice, using masks and sanitizing, all these other things. I think he needs to be reiterated. He needs to be very deliberate in his messaging surrounding that right now. And I don't think he has been enough, especially over the last 2 to 3 weeks. He seems to kind of be pulling back a little bit on it. And I think he's doing it deliberately because, he has the same fear everybody else does. We're scared this thing's going to get out of hand again. And I think he does too. But I wish that he would be honest and say, hey, look, I'm scared about this thing, guys. I really am. I wish more leaders were like that and said, hey, we're afraid of this and we need to be very safe. We need to practice our social distancing. We need to do these things and we need to do them deliberately with intentionality. And I'm disappointed that he hasn't said those things. So
now that brings me to a question is that, because right now, unfortunately, as you may, as you probably know, that there are a lot of people who are very anti-masks, they feel like it's kind of become a politicized issue, unfortunately. What do you think it's going to take? I mean, is it going to take like a mask that says "Made America Great Again," or what do you think?
I think it takes, I'll be honest. I think it takes blatant honesty. I think that, I was sharing my wife this morning. I said, there's no way that I could be a governor or a leader like this right now because, and excuse my language, but I'd be like, are you guys effing idiots? People, are we this effing stupid that we're not doing these things consistently? We're not doing these things deliberately and intentionally by wearing masks. Hey, look, I don't care if you're fine with it. I care if the 80-year-old woman is not okay with it, and you may or may not have it. And I have a problem with it. I think that we need to do it as a personal responsibility to ourselves and our neighbors, period. I don't like wearing them. I went to the gym. I go to the gym, 3 or 4 days a week, but I was out there on Saturday. I wore it the whole daggone time at the gym. I hated it. I had to literally put my hand against the wall to hold myself up because, there's a lack of oxygen, and I had to catch myself because I felt myself like, man, I'm about to black out. But I did it. So I think we have to have that kind of approach and say, we got to do it. It doesn't matter what we feel. We got to do it to be right, to make sure we're good.
Yeah. And for me, it's personal because, I live with my family and, my mom, she has hypertension. She has high blood pressure, diabetes. I mean, if I get it and she gets it.
Sure. It could
that means that there's a very high chance, her age bracket and all these things that I may never see her again.
Sure. Absolutely. I agree 100%. My mom has Parkinson's disease and she can't afford to get it. She can't. It would probably, I don't want to say it would kill her, but it would do some damage to her. So,
I mean, that's kind of the question is that, a lot of people we encounter is like, they don't believe in it. Or like, they'll get mad at the, businesses because they're required to wear a mask and then they get mad. Like, what do we actually do or say? I mean, how do we handle that?
I think personally, I think businesses should have a right to turn away consumers. If I'm a Walmart manager, I think that if you're coming into my store without a mask, then you shouldn't be allowed in my store. Period. I think that there's some stores here, Publix. It's a grocer here in Central Florida, or here in Florida in general. They won't let you in. They won't let you in without a mask. There's another Keys supermarket. It's out of New York, but they have stores here in Central Florida. They won't let you in if you don't have a mask. And I think we need to be doing that right now, period. And if you don't, well, there was a protest here in Sanford, which is a neighboring community here in Orlando last week. And people were protesting, oh, we have a constitutional right not to wear a mask. And it's like, yeah, you do, but don't be an idiot, So, it's just, we got to use common sense here, guys. So, but that's my opinion.
Now, wow. And and while we're on this political topic, we're a very polarized country right now.
Sure.
And I'm so glad we can have this, heart-to-heart conversation. What frustrates you most about the Democrats or the liberals? As someone who is conservative, what disappoints you? What frustrates you the most?
Probably the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy is the biggest one. I think the Democrats, the left, and I'm not even saying Democrats, I think the left in general, have this blaring flashlight that they flash on everyone who is not part of their party who falls or who fails or who makes mistakes. I think Trump, I'll be honest with you, I think Trump's an idiot. I don't like him. I like his policies. But guess what? I don't have to like him. I'm not going to have the guy over to my house for dinner tomorrow. You know, I wouldn't want the guy at my house for dinner tomorrow. Period. But I like his policies. I like his
you wouldn't want your daughters around him or anything. Probably.
Yeah, I don't want my daughter around him. You know, I wouldn't want my kids around him. I wouldn't want him pouring into my children. But he's not going to. You know, so I just need him to manage the country. So I think that he has a loose mouth. I think that his mouth is, frankly, it's offensive. But I also think there are many, and there have been many on the other side, that are just as foul-mouthed, that are just as oppressive to people. And I think that the media and the left shine the light on him very heavily. And they didn't do it on the other parts. They didn't do it on his counterparts, or they didn't do it against his counterparts. And I think historically, the left is very, very, very hypocritical when it comes to that. You know, so you can have one of his opposition members say certain things with regards to race that are downright despicable.
Racist.
They're racist. They're condescending. They're you name it. And there's nothing that's ever mentioned. But allow Trump to say black, and all he has to do is say it in the wrong way, and he's a racist. And I don't buy it. You know, I don't buy it. And I think it's been like that for a very, very long time. You know, and it got even worse over through the Obama period. I think it got I think it got worse. So that's probably my biggest challenge.
Yeah. So how do you think, what do you feel like is crucial for us to come together? Because, you know, to be one nation under God, as we say.
I think that we have to be honest with where we're at. You know, we have to be honest as a people, as a nation, as racial, you know, people of specific races, people of specific cultures, people of specific religions. I think we need to be honest where things are. You know, I think that if, as a Hispanic male, because I'm going to speak from a Hispanic perspective, I don't like illegals. I don't like illegals. I don't like for people to be here from my country illegally, because I think that it can give a negative context, or it could give negative context to me. You know, there are people who here are people. You can have your own, whatever your argument is, but at the end of the day, it's very simple. You either do it legally or you don't. I had legal issues that I had corrected, that I had to deal with the consequences of my illegal behaviors. I dealt with them and I recovered. I don't understand why it's not like that with folks who come here illegally. You know, people are given the opportunity to do it. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Don't think it is. It's not an easy situation. I have friends who immigrated here from Bolivia, who immigrated here from Brazil, who immigrated here from Eastern Europe, who've immigrated here from places like Thailand and Nigeria, you name it. I have friends who've immigrated here from all over the world, but they did it, or their parents did it, and they did it legally through the process that they were given. And I think it's very important for us to do those things, you know, but I also think we have to be honest with that. We have to be honest with it as a people, you know, so, you know, the whole thing, Black Lives Matter right now, that's a big thing right now. I think what happened with these two recent situations, the one in Atlanta and the one in Minnesota, were horrifying. I thought that it was the most despicable behavior that human beings could have. I think that the rioting is the most despicable behavior that people can have, you know, and I think we need to be honest with that. I think that leaders from the Black community to step out and say, hey, you know what? This is wrong. The rioting that's taking place is wrong. Police brutality is wrong. The police, you know, and I've never seen the police not do those things. I think police pretty well condemn police brutality. But I think that we need to be honest as a group of individuals, and, you know, we need to be honest individually with where we're at. You know, we need to be honest with who we are We need to be honest with our part in this process that's going on. We need to be honest with what our, how we've, potentially negatively impacted this thing. And we need to be honest with that. And I think that if we can all do that collectively, and we can have leaders step up and say, hey, look, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. I went through counseling for many, many years. And one of the most poignant things that the counselor ever told me, and he said, hey, look, you don't have to accept the behavior, but at least understand it. And I think that if we can all be honest and say, hey, this is what's going on with my life right now. This is what's going on with my people right now. It's not going on with all my people. It's not going on with all the police officers. Definitely not all police officers are brutal, practice brutality. But if people can just be honest and say, hey, this is what's going on, then I think those are healing type of situations. Jesus was very poignant. You think about Jesus, right? This dude came out. Could you imagine Jesus today if he came out to a woman and said, if she says, oh, he's speaking to the adulterous woman. Just think about this, right? He's a woman at the well, right? Just think about some woman coming up to him today. And he goes, oh, no, I know you're not married. As a matter of fact, you've lived with 5 different men. You're in an adulterous relationship right now. Could you imagine if that happened today?
Yeah. Whew.
He would be called. He would be called a what do you call it? A chauvinist and against
enabler, sexist,
sexist, and you name it. He would be called those things. You think about it, but we have to have those kind of honest conversations, and we have to be open when the dialogue is about us. If you come to me and say, Mike, you're an a-hole. I think you're very, too blatant, or you're too this. Cool. You can tell me that. I'm cool, and trust me, I know it because
No, I mean, like, for example, the immigration topic, it's very complex, right? Because on one hand, we have, there's a reason why we have the laws that we do. On the other hand, we kind of have to look at some of the situations. Like, for example, when I was working at a church, we had, students that, they didn't have a say.
Sure.
Their parents brought them here and didn't have papers, and they could, they're basically American. They have no friends in another country. They went to college. I had somebody that they became a nurse. And they couldn't find a job.
Dude, I'll be honest with you. From a political standpoint, I don't agree with conservatism. I don't agree with Trump. I'm a firm supporter of DACA. I believe that we need to make a way for them to transition to become United States citizens, full rights. I think we need to make a way to do that, and we need to be smart and use common sense to do it. I think there's ways to do it. I just don't think that they want to find a way to do it. But we have to. I think that it's asinine for a guy to grow up here his entire life, to go through college, be a taxpayer, and for you to say, hey, actually, you don't have a right to be here. You know what I mean? It's crazy. You've done everything from a contribution standpoint to contribute to this country. You should have a right to be here. I know it sucks that your parents weren't, citizens, but, you should have the opportunity to be here with full rights as a full citizen, period. So I don't have a problem with it. How many are there? 1.5 million?
I actually don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I
think it's 1.5 million, or I don't know what the number is.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Let's give them a right. Let's give them a pathway to do it. Let's give them a pathway to do it. Let's give a pathway to the guy from Mexico who comes in and picks oranges or whatever the heck he does. And let's give him a pathway to do it. Honestly, it sucks. Citizenship, to become a citizen of this country, is expensive. It's a very expensive process.
It is.
And it's a time-consuming process.
Just elaborate on this later time. But my family actually took us 19 times to get a visa. 19 times over 7 years.
Yep.
But I want to wrap up here, and I want to leave us with this last question, which is, what is your favorite verse of the Bible, and how did it impact you?
He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools shall be destroyed. I think it's Proverbs 13:20, maybe. Hang on, let me look it up.
And while you're looking at that, why do you think? How has that been the most impactful in your life? Or very impactful.
I think that if we surround ourselves with people who are going to empower us, who are going to encourage us, who are going to lift us up, who are going to do all those things to help us succeed, not only from an economic standpoint, an emotional standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, most importantly. We have to have those type of individuals in our life. If I hadn't have had those individuals in my life, I never would have. And I had, my friend Mike was one of them. To this day, we're still friends. I don't have a big group of close friends, but my closest friends edify me. I don't like everything they say all the time. And most of the time, I don't like half the stuff they say, but they do it because they know it's good for me. I just think that if we surround ourselves with people who are going to be positive in our lives, that it makes us become better people. Iron sharpens iron, right? And we have to have those kind of individuals in my life. I tell my daughters, I tell my children all the time, choose your friends, choose them wisely, choose them well. If you only have one of them, then great. You got one good one you can trust. I'd rather you have one good one than 20 ones that are no good for you. Choose well. So that's probably one of the most powerful scriptures. For me, it is, because I think it's very practical. And it's a very practical way to live our life also, because if you do it that way, and typically if you pick people that are going to be good for you, then most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, you'll end up being good for others also. So there you go.
Well, thank you so much. Wow, I was so moved, and that was a powerful, just incredible experience for me just listening to you. So I want to thank you again, staying up till what, 11:40 with us?
Yeah, 11:45.
Thank you so much, Michael.
No, I appreciate the time, Eric, and it's good talking to you and meeting you for the first time, even though we're not in person. But if I'm ever out in California, I'll make sure to stop on by to see you. We'll have lunch.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, and if you're ever in Florida too.
All right. Well, good night and God bless.
God bless you, man.
Okay. Whew, that was a lot. We covered so many topics: immigration, COVID-19, crime, family, wisdom. So again, thank you so much. And yeah, I really like that message. I really think about who we surround ourselves with, because that's who we become. Thank you so much, everybody. That's your everyday faith. God bless. You gotta turn it off for me. It's still on live.